If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schafer, and Justin Andrews.
In this extra long episode of Mind Pump.
Sort of long-winded, huh?
So the first 50 minutes, we just have our fun introductory conversation. We don't talk too much about fitness, but here's what we talked about in that first half. First off, we mentioned Four Sigmatics mushroom matcha latte with, how do you say it, Doug?
Maitake.
Maitake.
Ooh,
Thank you very much.
So good when you say that.
Maitake.
It's really good, right? Matcha latte. Maitake is an adaptogen herb. Mushroom. And Adam actually likes the way this one tastes.
Finally, I could talk about Four Sigmatic.
And it feels good. It's a feel good one. Four Sigmatic is one of our sponsors. If you go to their website, FOURSIGMATIC.com/mindpump, foursigmatic.com/mindpump, and use the code mindpump at checkout. You'll get 15% off your order. Then we talked about Adam and Taylor's romantic snowboard weekend.
Stupid romantic.
Had a good time.
So sweet.
We talked about Thrive Market and some of the snacks we like to purchase on there for ourselves and for our kids. Now, Thrive Market is the largest online retailer of non-GMO organic products and skincare products and pet care products and household cleaning products. It's actually an awesome website.
It's a one-stop shop.
They are one of our sponsors. If you go to thrivemarket.com/mindpump, we will hook you up with 1 month free membership and 25% off your first order. Then we talked about the Manhattan retail space on, Fifth Avenue? It's people are leaving in droves. What's going on? Is the storefront going to become a thing of the past? We talked about
Retail's
football.
dead.
We had a lot of sports talk here, and I contributed. Yay for me.
I'm so proud of you.
We talked about the Patriots and their winning culture. And then, of course, it got sad, and we talked about the brain changes of kids who play one season of football.
Damn it.
Then we got into the fitness questions. The first fitness question was, do we believe that you can become addicted to food? Is it a myth? Is food addiction a myth, or is it a real thing? Next question, do we believe the hypothesis that humans are only meant to squat as much weight as they can clean and press over their head and put onto their back? Apparently, some people are saying you shouldn't squat more weight than that. We think they're wrong, and the evidence is Justin's glutes.
Hey.
They look good.
Look at them.
The next question is, why is there a stigma around hypertrophy training in some athletics, in particular mixed martial arts? Hypertrophy referring to bigger muscles, not just stronger muscles, not just better performing muscles, but muscles that are actually bigger.
Pulsating.
Why is it some people are, especially in mixed martial arts, are saying don't get bigger, it's not good for performance? We have a good discussion there. And the final question, this person wants to know how we got so good at communicating why thank you. Is it because of practice?
This part was really long-winded.
Are there books you can read? And we went off on our awesomeness on that part. Also, this month, the flagship foundational workout program, the most popular workout program that we have. It's great for boosting your metabolism, building muscle, getting stronger. MAPS Anabolic, 50% off. All you got to do is go to mapsfitnessproducts.com and use the code RED50, RED50, no space, and you'll get 50% off. It's also getting revamped, so if you already have the program and you've had it for a long time, or if you enroll in it now at the 50% off, you'll get updated as soon as the updated version comes out. I'd also like to mention we have a lot of other fitness programs. We have fitness programs for bodybuilders, people who like to do unconventional type of training, people who want correctional exercise because maybe they have aches and pains. All of those programs can also be found at mapsfitnessproducts.com.
T-shirt time!
And it's t-shirt time.
Oh, it's my favorite time of the
Seize
week.
the day.
Well, I gotta say, there's not many reviews this week. About 12 total between Facebook and iTunes.
Bullshit.
It's crazy.
All right. What the hell's going on?
I don't know what's going on, but I know how people can correct that.
People don't like free shit anymore?
Well, look, your odds of winning a free Mind Pump t-shirt, and let me tell you something right now, these t-shirts have been tested and have improved the strength in several
They're
of our tests.
almost bulletproof.
Several of our test subjects don't test them on bullets and don't think you can lift more when you wear them. I made that part up, but they're really nice. They're really nice t-shirts. Here's what you do. Go to Facebook. Go to the public Mind Pump page. Leave a review if we like it. Our judge, Doug, will decide you may win a free t-shirt.
All right. And the winners are, we have 3 winners, 2 from iTunes, 1 from Facebook. From iTunes, we have A. Kuntz23, ADF 25.
Did you say Kuntz different?
Kuntz. Kuntz.
I feel like it says something else.
You can look it up yourself. And then on Facebook, we've got Thierry Basegato. All of you are winners in the name I just read to iTunes at mindpumpmedia.com. Send your shirt size, your shipping address, and include your Instagram handle, and we'll get that shirt right out to you.
That is the first product of theirs
What?
I like.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You mean the taste?
For Sigmatica?
Yeah, the taste. 'Cause
Yeah.
I know that we've talked about the product working.
Yeah, you
great.
like the FX. It's the taste that you always have a problem with.
I know.
Because it's not flavored, icy flavored ice cream stuff.
Right.
No, I mean, and that's by no means is amazing, but it's
Donut
got a good
flavor.
taste to it.
Yeah,
I could
it's
get down with that.
Well, I don't know how to pronounce this mushroom. I always say it wrong. It's maitake. How do you
it's
pronounce
maca.
that? No.
Matcha.
Yeah, it's matcha powder, which is green. So you guys know what matcha? First of all, we should talk about that. You guys know what green tea is, obviously.
Yeah.
Matcha comes from these young green tea leaves that are raised in the shade. And because they're raised in the shade, they produce more antioxidants.
Yeah, because you put it in like a shot, right?
Matcha,
Yeah.
they dry it and ground it up and turn it into powder. And so when you look at when you drink traditional matcha tea, it's produced in a specific way. But I love it. I love matcha tea. The taste is okay. It's kind of grassy. Not this, but when you drink actual
No,
matcha.
I like. I mean,
No, this is good.
yeah. Rachel just brought in. Is it a new product Forsomatic's doing, or
They've had it for a little while.
They've had it for a while.
But it's got maitake, which is this
Maitake.
mushroom that, because Four Sigmatic specializes in mushrooms, which is a mushroom that has some interesting anti-cancer properties and immune-boosting properties. And of course, it's an adaptogen. Most of these mushrooms are adaptogens. They help the body deal with stress.
Yeah.
But it's a good combination with matcha, because matcha is going to have a little bit of caffeine, probably, be a little invigorating. Combine it with the maitake. Hope I'm saying it right. And it should be am I saying it wrong, Doug?
I don't know. We're just going to
Maitake.
Oh.
I always hate being this guy.
You know what? Doug's making this face every time I say it, like, ooh, like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Doug, when you were in Japan, a lot of our listeners don't know that you lived in Japan for a long time.
I did.
When you were there, did you ever have traditional matcha tea where they'd use the brush and they really?
Yeah, they have a whole ceremony around the matcha tea.
It's very specific, right? The way they serve it.
Yeah,
and
they
everything?
like turn the bowl in a certain way. They have a little whisk that they whisk it. It's quite involved.
really,
Yeah, so do you know why I know this?
Why is that?
Karate Kid. Do you remember? Remember when he goes to? remember when he
Mr.
goes to
Miyagi.
Japan?
So desu ka.
Yeah.
No, what'd you say?
I don't know.
So desu ka.
Oh, okay. When he goes to Japan and
I don't remember that part.
yes, it was the one
It's
that was
Karate Kid 2.
Yes, I love you,
that's
Justin.
yeah.
He always remembers.
Yeah, because that was the one where he did the whole meditative, where he hacked through all the ice.
Yes,
Remember that?
Yes. And he falls in love with the Japanese girl.
Yeah.
And she serves him the tea. Remember, she's like, it has to turn a particular way. He has to sit a particular way. That was matcha tea that she was giving him.
I see.
Damn
Yeah,
it.
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
You don't remember part 2? It wasn't that good.
I gotta stop.
It was the
smoking
worst
weed.
one.
And he finally learned how to like manicure the little trees.
Banzai!
These are the
bonsai
side
trees.
effects I've decided, because nothing else I feel like I have side effects from, but I forget. I know I've watched that at one point, but maybe I've only seen it once or
He's
twice.
like, what's your name?
Yeah.
Justin. That's right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Right, it's
Doug,
not that bad.
did you take any of those rituals and do you still do them today? Like, like for tea or whatever, like from Japan?
And I never learned them. So when I make a cup of tea, I just take some tea and throw some hot water in it, and mix it up.
Yeah.
That's how I work it.
Is there anything that you learned from the Japanese that you continue to do now? Like, do you take your shoes off when you're
I
at
do.
home? Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm very religious about taking my shoes off. It makes sense. I mean, think about it. You're not tracking a bunch of dirt into your house.
So I didn't grow up like that, right? We always wore our shoes in the house. And now we always take our shoes off. And you're right, it makes total sense. Because think about, like, you go in public bathrooms, you're walking around on the sidewalk.
Oh, I grew up this way because we
Stepping
lived
dog
out
shit.
in the country, and we had white carpets and we had red dirt everywhere, and so it was like mandatory we take our shoes off. So I was trained, and then when I bought my place, it was white carpets too. So This is the first house that I think I haven't really taken my shoes off, but it's all wood floors.
Yeah.
And you clean
I
them
just
all the
finally
time?
got rid of all my carpet on the stairs. I'm so happy. It's all wood floors.
Oh, did you get wood put in or did you put it in?
Yeah, I had somebody do it this time. Thank God.
Do you still have a tree branch in your roof?
No, I took that out,
Okay,
but
it's
I have a hole there still. Yeah, I had to put like a tarp on it for now until I could fix it.
Super ghetto. You're like one of those people that are driving.
They drive along. That's the worst part is because like where I live, it's like on a hill, so you can the road actually goes so you can see down at my house on the top of my house.
Yes,
so now you totally
like
see
a trash bag.
Yeah.
You know, like when people have
Yeah.
their window broken
Yeah.
and they duct tape like a trash bag
It's a
over
lot
it.
like that.
Those are my favorite cars. And then you look inside the
it's
back seat.
embarrassing.
And it's a bunch of empty Coke cans and McDonald's
Wind
bags.
blows and it's like
Yeah.
like, fuck.
I love the Japanese culture. I can't. I've never been to Japan, but it's it's on my bucket list 100%. I want to
Yeah.
go so bad.
I want to go now too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I'm in now.
Finally.
I want to get a samurai sword.
Well, I
Oh,
watched,
yeah.
I
Really
watched
bad.
like a YouTube special or some shit on sneakers,
Oh, of
and they
course.
have like a super sneaker culture over there. I didn't even know about.
Oh,
it.
really?
I
You
feel
know-
like such a
of
Dude,
all
Their karaoke bars are probably awesome.
of all developed nations, it's one of the safest in the world. Period. Like end of story. Like theft, violence. It's one of the most respectful societies, and the reason why I'm so fascinated with Japanese culture is because I did judo as a kid, and the judo school that I went to was people who live in San Jose know where the San Jose Buddhist church is downtown, and the judo school I went to was called San Jose Buddhist Judo Club because it was next to the Buddhist church, and it was very traditional. And Japanese judo traditional is it's around respect. So like you bow, you say certain things, you have to be a certain way. You roll the mats out in the beginning. At the end, everybody stays afterwards and cleans the mats. So the students have to clean the mats before and after. Then when you go do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is based on, the Brazilians are just so relaxed. Like the instructor shows up 10 minutes late. Hey, what's going on? Hey, everybody, hey, shake hands. All right, let's go. It's totally different atmosphere than the Japanese. But the Japanese, I was so fascinated with them. So I want to go. And they really revere their elderly
They
over
do.
there. Yeah, which a society based on a lot of honor. I don't know if this is true, but when they had the Fukushima nuclear plant or whatever that got from the earthquake,
Yeah.
they needed volunteers to dive under there to do some work or to take a look at it or whatever. But the people who go down there, even though they would wear protective suits, they knew like if I go under, I'm going to dramatically increase my risk of cancer and probably die. And so they needed volunteers. And you know who volunteered to do it? Elderly people. Elderly people who said, I don't have that much longer to live anyway. I'm already 75, so I'll go do it. So all these elderly people volunteer to dive under. I read this
crazy.
story. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
that is crazy.
That's a crazy story, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Anyway, what'd you guys do this weekend?
I was up snowboarding with Taylor.
Oh yeah, you're like a snowboarding machine right now.
Well,
He's a snowbird.
I made a commitment to.
It was just the two of you.
yeah, just two of us.
You guys share a hotel room and everything.
Just the two of you.
We did.
Okay.
We did. Not a bed, but just a hotel.
Yeah,
room.
that's all right.
If you try.
Yeah.
Nobody's asking questions.
Yeah, no, he brought up to me, I think last year sometime, that he rides, and I had just tore my Achilles, and I bought a board because I had this intentions to ride more. I bought a new one, and then I never got to ride it. And he brought it up, and I said, no, this year I said I'm going to ride, and he's like, really? Are you seriously going to ride a lot? And I said, yeah, no, absolutely. I plan to ride myself. I said, but if you want to go, and so he went and got all new gear and geared up, and has been like constantly, telling me like, when are we gonna go? When are we gonna go? And I said, hey, let's go. I'm down. So we've already. This is that's my fourth ride already. This.
Now, how well did you do
Damn.
compared to him? Because he's young. You know what I mean? He's a kid.
Yeah.
And he's good, too.
And he's good.
Yeah, no,
He's
he can ride.
athletic.
No,
you
he
guys
can-
going in the half pipe and all that, or you just
No,
cutting?
no, I'm not. That's it's funny.
That's a young man's game.
Every time I go now, which is going to get annoying. Every time if this is going to be the typical DM that I get, like everybody, if I do stories, which by the way, I'll fucking stop doing stories if people keep doing it. They bug me about no helmet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I'm like,
get out of here with the helmets.
I rode for 15. I rode for 15
I make my kids wear
years
them, though.
before helmets even hit the scene. Like
Yeah.
helmets didn't hit the scene until like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It just got popular to like wear a helmet, and then what I've seen happen is it's turned into like a trendy thing. And back when I was riding, when early on, if you wore a helmet, you were like part of the ski team and you were doing like 4 flips in the air. You know what I'm saying? Like that, and you were going fucking 100 miles
You
an
got
hour.
to do like really like crazy shit.
Yeah, I mean, we were riding parks and hitting tabletops and kickers. And
Yeah, but we also came from the generation that we were jumping over our friends on our BMX bikes.
Right, no.
We rode our bikes barefoot. with no helmet.
We're not wrapped in bubble tape.
No, so I get maybe that's why it bothers me a little bit. I'm just like, no, I said, no, I'm not going to.
You know what sucks about that is when people hammer you about something like that, and then God forbid something happens.
I know,
like,
I know, right?
You feel like you're getting jinxed.
Some freak accident. I'm like, yeah, that's why I think like, why even bring it up? Don't say it. I've been riding for 20
leave me
years
alone.
now, and I've never had any problems. How about you don't fucking say anything? But
Right.
yeah, so we're not riding that aggressive. But I mean, we're moving. I mean, Taylor can ride for sure. He's been riding obviously.
Now, are you able to keep up with him, or?
Yeah, he kept up with me a little
Oh,
bit.
yeah?
Yeah. So
That's nice. How's that feel?
it feels good to be the old guy who could still move, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I saw somebody get a little sleepy on the way home there.
yeah, so I was well, so here's the deal, like
What if he let you do that though? What if he's like, I'm gonna let him win?
No. You can see he wants to be in front of dad, you know, for sure. No, he was so we rode last a few weeks back when we were up in Heavenly, and we rode 2 days. And man, the first day, so I mean, here's like the old guy in me, right? Like I know what I need to do, just like any other sport. I ease my way in, so I went and rode by myself before that, and I got a nice ride in, and I'm like, about 7 to 10 runs, and I knew I was going to be tired and my legs would be good. Like that's enough, right? And I was trying to explain this to him that it's just like, like a squat is extremely technical skill, right? Snowboarding is as technical or more technical. To learn how to snowboard is not easy if you've never done it before. And so if the body fatigues, then that's where form and mechanics go off. It's no different. And so that's when you're at the greatest risk of injury. And if I'm going to do this right, I slowly scale myself up. I ride a little bit harder, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more, and I build up. Where he wanted, like the first time we went out, we did 15 plus runs. And I'm like, hey, we're going another day, right? Tomorrow. And so I told him that. So we go up this trip, same thing again. And I'm like, I'm trying to hold us back a little bit, like, hey, let's ease into it. And he's got the young mind and young legs are like, let's go. I'm like, and I'm not going to bow down. I'm like, okay, let's go. I'll ride. And so we rode all day. We were in the car for 2 minutes. Fucker was out. He was just out and exhausted. Talking about, oh my God, I'm so exhausted.
But it was fun. Nobody had any big hard spills or anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, he doesn't, both of us don't fall. I mean, unless we're fucking around doing something like messing around and trying tricks or hitting little kickers, like we might do a little spiel. But, he's a good enough rider that he's not going down, and he's moving down the hill. I never had to wait for him or anything like that. Normally when I ride with people, I have to wait unless you're somebody who's been riding for a really long time.
My buddy just recently broke his tailbone snowboarding, which is a terrible thing to break.
That'll happen.
So I have a cracked coccyx that's forever with me, and I first
It's always correct.
Yeah, well, you can't fix it.
You can't wear a cast.
Yeah, you can't do anything about it. So I injured it first on a
Little donut cast.
on a tabletop jump when I was riding a snowboard, and just board kicked out from underneath, landed straight on it. Then when I did real damage to it was when I was riding on a quad track, hit a tabletop, almost started to do a backflip on the quad, bailed on it, landed flat on it, got up, the adrenaline, I popped up, and then collapsed back down. They rushed me to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I lose all feeling in my right side. Freak the fuck out. I thought I was like going to get paralyzed. I was so scared. But what happened is it had swollen so much that it
Cut
pinched
off the nerve.
Yeah, pinched a nerve.
Well, dude, it takes forever for that to heal. They can't put a cast on it, and then many times you have permanent kind of muscle dysfunction as a result.
Oh, so what happened? So I had to sit on this donut like all day, all night. And I remember I fell asleep without it one time, woke up with a softball-sized blood clot. Had to go there, get it drained. They were all like freaked out, like you got to make sure you sit on this thing. So that was miserable for like a week. And now if I squat wrong, deadlift wrong, even the slightest bit off on my mechanics, it flares up on that same side and I swell up. So I'm really sensitive to that because it's an injury that I've never been. You can't fix it. I mean,
wow.
Yeah.
My daughter just hurt her wrist at school. She was running from some kids and then tried to stop herself on the wall. So they called me from school. I had to go over there and pick her up. And it's hard to. It's funny with wrists, especially. There was no swelling, but it hurts to move, so you never know if it's fractured or not. And then on top of that, she's dramatic, so I can't tell.
Yeah.
I can't tell if it's like a real deal or not, because 1 minute she'll be not saying anything, playing. The next minute she'll be like, "Oh, my wrist hurts," and I'll be like, and so I was talking to her. I'm like, "Honey," I'm like, if you want my attention, you could just say you want my attention. I'll give it to you. Yeah. Because I don't know if you're telling me the truth or not. So all weekend I'm trying to trick her into using her hand to see if she's unconscious. If she's trying to be dramatic. I have no idea. So we're probably going to get an image today, and I'm going to feel real bad if it is broken.
I'm the worst
I'll feel
gauge.
an asshole.
I'm the worst to gauge that. Yeah. Like my son hit his head really hard, and I'm like, rub it out. You're fine.
It's like a goose
The next day, huge welt, black and blue. And I was like, oh, wow, that really did something to you. I'm sorry. I got him ice cream. I felt so bad. Oh, man.
Yeah. What'd you end up doing this weekend? Did you do anything with your kids?
I was just working on the house and just like hanging out. I didn't do anything, dude. I have nothing cool to say. I really don't. I don't have cool snowboarding stories.
He's like searching right there.
I was like waiting. I was like, did I do anything cool? No.
He's like,
no, I did not do anything cool. I was like 100% dadded out, like just hanging out.
I watched more of that show, Adam.
Oh, you?
Yeah.
How far in are you right now?
Episode 4.
Okay.
And really well made.
Isn't it?
Yeah, because you go from liking some characters to hating characters to liking them, where the bad guy all of a sudden feels like you like him and he's the good guy, and then the person who's the victim
well
seems,
written.
That's what I like about it.
I knew you would like that because
Yeah.
I know you like twisted shit, and I know you like something that's well written. And that's exactly what it is. If you're someone like that, like if you're someone who gets creeped out by the story, like it's not for you. Because it's got a little creepiness to it.
It does, but it's not that bad.
So
it's really well written though.
It's the number one show that I've recommended on this podcast that I've gotten the most DMs back about it. Like I've had a flood of DMs since we brought it up on the show the other day of people going like, "Oh my god, that was a really good show." Mm-hmm. I found another one. Amazon Prime, in my opinion, sucks for movies. I think Netflix is so much better.
You mean for their own programming?
Yes. But every once in a while I find one, and my two favorite, and I've brought up The Marvelous Miss Maisel, I think is what that one. That one's really good. And then I just found one of our listeners, shout out to whoever it was, I can't remember, Red Oaks. Really good.
What's that about?
And I'm behind, right? So I know someone who's listening right now, they're like, "You idiot, that's on 3rd season right now." So it's been around for a little while. It's on the 3rd season. And it's just like a bunch of young kids that are in their freshman year of college that are in the summertime. They're working at this tennis pro club, and one of the kids is a tennis pro, and it's just all the drama that happens within there, and it's got good writing, it's funny, it's a good show, it's got good acting, so a good story behind it. I think it's really. I just finished the 1st season. I'm just starting the 2nd season. It's good.
Did you see what Doug had up on the screen earlier with Thrive?
I walked in and you guys were talking about snacks.
They have Doug and I were just having a conversation
talking about snacks.
Yeah. No, they have these snack like you can go and get paleo snack kits. You could get snack kits that are. I want to pull up the paleo snack. Yeah.
Now, are these things that you guys are using with your kids yet? I mean, is this what you guys order for your kids?
I'll have them.
Some of the crackers and stuff.
Yeah.
Just inevitably, we need some of those types of things around, the house.
Well, you're competing with the shitty snacks that their friends are eating.
They've been conditioned, from going to mom, my parents.
Yeah, so you want to give them something that's that can compare or compete. And they have, like my kids like the jerky.
Now
that's from that I get from Thrive Market. There's those those chips that I told you guys about last time, the grain-free ones. Yeah, look at
beet chips.
So look, they have vegan snack kits,
chips,
and then they have paleo snack kits. And if you are you able to click on the paleo snack kits, Doug, to see if they're? So these are kits that you can order, and they come with. There's all these different things that
dried mangoes are good.
Yeah, that are good for.
Let me ask you guys this now. Obviously, we didn't know about Thrive Market. I love those chips, by the way, too.
The grain-free ones.
Yes, those are.
So you've tried them.
Yeah,
yes.
I've been using those.
It's
quite a bit
made
now.
with what's that root? I said it last
Cassava.
time. Cassava. Why don't we eat more cassava stuff?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Because it's good. You know, a lot of times when they replace grains with something else, it doesn't taste good.
No, that tasted good.
That tastes really good.
No, those taste good. You know, I'm a snob about that. No, so what I wanted to ask you guys, because obviously we didn't know about Thrive Market until the podcasting scene, right? So do you guys think, because your kids are older now, do you think if you would have ordered from here and had this stuff in the house early on in their early years, and they were just trained that these are the snack foods and the things,
Yeah.
do you think that they wouldn't want all the other shit like Doritos and all the other snack,
The familiar.
like what I don't even know, like what are kids snacking on today that is kind of like, for me, I remember
All the same shit.
Remember the cheese sticks that you put in the fucking fake ass cheese and
yeah,
eat?
they still have those. And they still have the little Ritz ones with the fake cheese in the middle.
Yeah. So
like,
are these the
they
things?
have all those
Yeah,
still.
right. And what's cheese nips or whatever? Like all the
Yeah, I remember those.
yeah, like things like that. Like,
Unfortunate name.
Cheez-Its.
Cheez-Its really good.
yeah. So are the kids eating? Are your kids eating that type of stuff, and you guys are trying to convert them to the things from Thrive? Or
Some of that. Yeah, I think that's part of it because they'll go to these practices or games, and then the parents will kind of give them Cheez-Its or they'll give them all these processed like crackers and shit, and so it is somewhat like I'm trying to provide other options so they know like if that's available, this is kind of what I want to lean more towards. But yeah, they want to have Doritos, they want to have like Cheetos and all that shit.
So
It still exists.
It's all about the familiarity.
that's what I mean. Like, do you think it would have made a difference?
Yes, I do.
Probably.
I'll give you an more extreme example. My cousins, they just left, but they were visiting from Italy. And my cousin has two kids. One is a 13-year-old girl, and the other is a 9-year-old boy. And when they get here, I'm asking them, like, okay, you're in America now, because they've never been to this country before. I'm like, what do you want? Like, what are the things you want? And the 9-year-old is like, Fiji water. I'm like, what? Fiji water? I'm like, what? You want Fiji water? He goes, yeah, the channels on YouTube, the kids are always drinking it. I want to try it. So I'm like, this is because of the familiarity of Fiji water, and they, obviously in their town, I guess they don't have Fiji water. He thought it was a big deal. I'm like, it's just water, but just goes to show you the familiarity and how big of a difference it makes for kids.
Wow,
so
that's interesting.
Here's another one. Like, do you guys remember ever eating? I never remember eating fucking seaweed snacks. Do you guys remember eating seaweed snacks? I never did.
No.
It's a big thing in my kids' school. So my kids are always asking for seaweed snacks. So I buy them. I also get them from Thrive Market. They have a really good one. So my kids like it. It's all familiarity, you know what I mean? What they're around a lot of is kind of what they want, more of. My kids never really want soda, mainly because we never have it. So that's another big one. I was the same way because I never had it.
Oh, that's the opposite. Like Ethan always wants soda because he never gets it.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's the big push is because grandma and grandpa will give him like a root beer or something and then screw me over.
Did you guys see the article that Jackie sent us on
Fast Company?
No, I can't. Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan.
I saw that one, but I didn't read that one
So
or the sports one.
So Fifth Avenue is where you see a lot of these huge retailers will put up these kind of flagship stores, and they'll put them up. And they're not necessarily trying to make money on them. It's more of like part of their branding, and it's been a big deal for a long time, right? To have a store on Fifth Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. Well, I got a statistic here that I think is pretty crazy. That I'm gonna read to you. I saved it. The availability rate of leases at the end of 2018 was 27.5%. 10 years ago, it was 5%. Just to show you how fast people are moving out of
Retail.
out of that space.
Just brick and mortar.
Yeah, I think that's
everything's direct to consumer now.
and that's what.
Meanwhile, Amazon's creating like brick and mortar spaces, which is interesting.
Well, they did it back.
Amazon
They
goes.
did it.
Yeah, they did. They
It's no different.
own the market. And then
It's
they
just
bring it
how
back.
we built this business. Like if I've always talked about, and we've said it on the show early on, that we would never open a gym. Like I have no desire to open a gym.
Yeah.
But I have a desire to open the gym now. But we built a substantial online virtual business first that then the
That
brick
can direct traffic to it.
Right, and not only that, but then it doesn't matter. The brick and mortar could not have anybody in it. It could fail. It doesn't matter because we've already built a substantial virtual business that supports the company. That if we decide, hey, you know what, I want to build a brick and mortar because why not? Why not have like a Cheers of the gym industry over here where we have our own little gym where people that know Mind Pump come in and work out, and we don't give a fuck if it has lots of memberships, and if it loses a couple people, it's not a big deal because we don't need it to keep the lights on.
Yeah.
I think you're seeing that, and Amazon did that, right? Amazon built a massive business, and so now they can go into like your Amazon Go stores and things like that. Then it makes sense.
So how do these Amazon Go stores work? You walk in and
Yeah, so you already have like your account with them, and so like I guess it recognizes as you go in. I don't know if you sign in or what the process is, but basically, like you log in, and so you scan whatever. You basically just take whatever item you want and walk out with it, and then they charge you automatically.
so it's just
like there's-
it scans it, like you go through
Yeah.
it, like scans it all.
now is it the same price as you would get it online?
That's a good question.
Oh, I don't know that.
You know, or is
Yeah,
there
I
a
don't know
fee
that.
for
There
the
might
fact that
be
you're
No, I think
like
it
a
would-
processing fee. Or
I would
something.
think it would be cheaper in person than it would be online.
Yeah,
There's
right.
no shipping involved.
You waive the shipping.
but they still have to pay for a physical location though. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it makes up the difference.
Maybe.
I would think that I keep thinking that these stores are going to be more like showrooms than anything.
That's kind of what they are.
It's kind of
You know,
but it's so cool though. I mean, imagine that if you're going to some retail location, like especially with clothes, because that's the worst thing to buy online. Like I don't know if these shoes are going to fit.
It's the only thing, really, right?
Yeah. So I want to go in and try it on, whatever, and then just walk out with it. I don't have to like sit there and have some goth kid check me out. You know? Like I just want to get out of there.
yeah. No, I don't like buying clothes online because you never know if they fit and how they fit well and all that stuff. So I think that's the last bastion of retail stores. You know what I mean? I feel like that's the last thing they're kind of holding on to.
I feel like it's the only thing that may never go full online. I feel like everything else is. I think that because of that reason, like, will that ever change that you don't want? The only thing that I see that, and they're obviously dipping into that, is you're seeing all these different companies pop up, like the trunk ones. And I know Amazon has theirs too. Remember, I brought that up like, I don't know, a few months ago when I saw that pop up. And what's cool about the Amazon trunk is it's not just one company. A lot of these trunk companies, they send their brand, their stuff, where Amazon's like, you can shop from all these different retailers and we send you
I
the
had
trunk.
heard something about that. I had heard that like really it was just like an over glorified. Basically, they're glorifying the fact that you could buy it and send it back, but that's just a normal online purchase. But they were like marketing it like it was a trunk service. Do you know what I'm saying?
Really?
Yeah. So,
No.
Yes.
No.
Because that's how like you either buy it by keeping it or you ship it back.
Right, right.
Yeah, so what's the difference?
So what's the difference with just buying it online?
Well, the difference with the trunk is they send it to you without buying. So the trunk sends to you like 3 outfits. You don't pay for any of it.
You only pay for what you
And
keep.
you keep it, you
and
pay for it.
then you only pay for what you keep.
Yeah.
And I know what you're saying, but what's the difference? But
it's not a big difference, is what I'm
But I
saying.
think
Well-
it is working on the psychology a little bit.
Oh,
It's
of
just
course.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean,
Plus, there's guys that want to.
I mean, I think there's a big
Yeah.
difference. Like, I wouldn't go buy like I just did this the other day. I bought can't remember where I bought from, but I bought like 5 or 6 different things, like clothes, and one of them I don't like. It got here and I'm like, but I don't return it. It's just the hassle of having to go back and return it. Now, if you ship me 4 or 5 outfits and I didn't pay for anything out of my own pocket, and then I just decide to keep whatever I want to keep, or I just send it all back, I'm more likely to do that.
What is the return? How does the return process work typically? Do you have to?
Yeah, it's a headache still.
Would it? So I would feel like wouldn't it be in their best interest to make it as easy as it is to get something delivered? Like you buy something, you don't like it, you just click on something on Amazon, just put it in the bag, put it at the front door.
Right.
The guy picks it up and does it all for you.
Yeah,
Don't you feel like that would totally just kill everybody?
Yeah.
There must be some reasons why they haven't done that. It's got to be too expensive. You know what I mean, to do something like that.
Yeah, I don't think they've fully figured that part out yet. But yeah, that would be huge
Yeah.
to make that easy.
Was there a big game this weekend?
There's a couple of them, dude.
playoffs.
That's what I actually did. Like I didn't do anything, but I actually finally
Great
watched some
football.
football.
Yeah.
Did you? So
Watched the Rams game. That was great.
So another article that Jackie sent talked about, I guess now that because gambling online now is officially legalized, right?
Yeah, March of last year. So March of last year, it went legal in the U.S. So you could be anywhere, and sports betting is going.
So it's going crazy.
Oh, it's going crazy.
So there's this one website that I guess the top. The pool, the winning.
It was DraftKings.
Okay.
Yeah, I read it.
$2.5 million.
Right, and the guy got fucked.
Apparently, a guy, because I guess what you do, I'd never done this before, but you could keep betting and you take your earnings and keep placing them.
Yeah. So the way I have DraftKings, all my buddies. This is how my buddies we all play, right? So you get it's attached to my checking account. I put over like. Let's
Whatever.
say, whatever money. Let's just say $300 for argument's sake. Put $300 in. Then I take that $300 and I enter into a pool, and I use all $300. And how this guy got fucked is this. So there was back-to-back football games on, and so what a lot of these guys, and they were part of a big tournament, and so what he was waiting for was the payout from his winnings.
So he could rebet.
So he could take that 300 because I think it was 300,000 that he won. And so he could then take that money and then put it back in again to try and potentially win $1 million. And what happened was there was such a delay and so many people probably betting that this guy who was in the top.
He didn't get his money until after the game started.
Right.
And he was trying, and the bet he was going to put would have won him $2.5 million.
Right. Dang. So.
Oh, how frustrating.
I mean, this happens all the time. If you're a gambler, like this, I mean, this happens to me all the time because that's the way I use my sports book the same way is I allow myself, even though I have other monies, I only allow myself to gamble X amount of dollars. And then I play on my winnings. So then like if and that's to me, I don't know. I think this is a smarter way to gamble so you're not a degenerate and you're not constantly, you lose and you're back into your own money. You're back and then you just keep going. If I put in X amount of dollars and I agree to myself, okay, this weekend I'm gambling $1,000 worth of whatever in football bets, and this is how I do it. And then I have small bets that lead up to that. Well, if that money's gone and I lose it in the first game, I'm done. I don't go and put more money back into my account so I can gamble. Now, if I win, I got to wait until my bookie clears that and then pays me so I can then bet again. And so that's what happened. And with that many people online and that close to the games back to back, like I'm sure it happened to quite a few people. And I've been in situations like that too, where I want to get
so frustrating.
Yeah, get a bet in really quick and then you miss.
Wow.
Yeah,
it's funny. Of course, he wouldn't have complained had he bet on the wrong
and lost, right?
Yeah.
So that's why, and that's the reason why too. I was surprised that it made as big a news as it did. Maybe just because of the amount of money we were talking about. But I mean, that's happened to me also many times where I'm like, "Fuck!" I'm all mad because I didn't get a bet in. And then it didn't go the right way. I'm like, oh, good thing I didn't. I got to keep $500. Yeah, save your ass.
So did your team win? Was there? I feel like Danny was talking shit to you.
Yes, Danny. That's it. I gave him a little shout out. His post. He talked shit. He's a Rams fan.
Poor Cowboys. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a Rams fan. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm sure he's a bandwagon fan. Yeah. Fucking Rams fan. Who's a Rams fan? Who the fuck is
my best friend, dude?
You have a friend that's a Rams fan?
Yeah, forever. And he used to talk shit all the time because I was a Niner fan. He'd be like, 40 whiners. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up.
41.
Yeah, that's not even like,
that's so
not
creative.
Work. Yeah. But
what's more impressive about what's happening right now in
they're
football
good right now
is the
are they the NFC champions?
No, not yet.
No,
so we have next weekend is AFC and NFC championship.
Yeah.
So you have there's four teams left. Patriots
2 games.
Yeah, Patriots play the Chiefs.
Patriots again?
Well, that's what I was alluding to.
Man.
So I think that's more if there's any talk right now about football that I think is really neat or is cool is the Patriots are on their 8th year in a row of going into a title game. That is fucking crazy.
Now, how many Super Bowls do they have?
They're on 5. Yep.
Yeah, I think it's 5.
Who's got the most Super Bowls so far?
Doug, Google that for me.
Is it still
Steelers?
Is it Steelers?
If there's a tie right now. There's a tie between.
The Steelers? Are you sure?
You're gonna hit me with sports trivia right now, you dick. I wasn't ready for that.
Well, I don't know.
I know. I would have never thought you were going to take us to sports.
Well, I know that each decade has their team that dominated, right? The 70s was the Steelers, 80s was the Niners, and then I stopped caring after that.
Had what? 3 with Montana,
so New England
2
has 4, 5, and then New England has 5 Super Bowl championships. How many did the Niners have? The Niners have more than that, don't they?
No.
No.
I thought
Steelers. Okay, listen.
Too.
Steelers are number 1 with 6. Then you have the Patriots with 5, and then you have the Cowboys with 5, the Niners with 5.
Oh, okay. So number 1 is the Steelers.
Yes. Number 1
Okay.
is Steelers. They go this year. They'll be these are wins, right? Now the Patriots have been there more than any other team.
Oh yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
So you're asking wins, right? So,
Yeah, I was asking wins.
Yeah, so Steelers have the most wins with 6. Patriots,
everybody else is 5.
Patriots are 5, Cowboys are 5, and San Francisco is 5. And then as far as the most ever, like nobody touches the Patriots. Patriots have actually been there 9 or 10 times. 9 times.
Wow.
No,
That's
10 times.
crazy,
Excuse me,
dude.
10 times. 10
Well,
times.
I mean, it just goes to show like there's a winning formula, and that winning formula wins.
Belichick and Brady.
What I like about, because I stopped paying attention to football after, when I was a kid, I stopped caring. But I was a big Niners fan when I was a young kid, and I used to love watching NFL films and all that. And what I remember watching these films was how these teams would change how the game was played, because you'd have like the Steelers dominate in the 70s,
Oh, yeah,
and
the
they
whole West
changed
Coast
how defense was
yeah.
played, and then the Niners changed how offense was
Right.
played in the 80s, and then I stopped caring. And
You know
so-
what? Well, you know what I thought.
What do
was
the Patriots do that's so amazing? Like what do they do that's different?
They got an incredible culture. They're I think it's.
Do you think it's easier to look back once their era is over, and then we can look back and be like, oh, this is specifically what they did? Because the culture is such a general term. Like,
No, it's no different than the way you would talk about some of the runs at gyms that you had. Like when you look back, and probably even when you were there, you probably knew it. Like when you compare the success that you had as a general manager in comparison to all your peers, you dominated. It didn't matter. And sure, you had some great players. You had some people like Larry Evans and people like that went down to be known as one of the greatest salespeople in our company. But it didn't matter. It was you.
Yeah, but you could say specifics. Like the Niners had a good culture in the 80s, but what did they revolutionize? The passing game.
Right.
Right. That's what I mean. Is there anything specific about the Patriots that we know now? Is it their defense? Is it their...
No. They're coaching, their ownership. So they draft well. They scout really well. They typically have an incredible offensive
A
line.
lot of leadership there that's like ridiculous. It's on another level.
You have somebody like a Belichick and a Tom Brady who are the first ones in, the last ones out. So that's what I mean by culture. They've created this. You could bring in like a Randy Moss who was like a wild child everywhere else, and then when you get there, it's like you drop all your shit. Like there's no more of your bullshit. Nobody puts up with it. They've created this culture that it doesn't matter who they bring into the mix. It's kind of like the Yankees in baseball. They've created that. The Warriors have done that now in basketball. You can talk all this shit about them and you can hate them as a fan of another team, which I'm not even a fan of the Patriots, but you have to respect what they're doing in the sport the same way that I feel like you have to respect what the Warriors are doing. And a lot of people like to point to great players, and it's like they're all professional athletes. That's what I always tell people. It's like, dude, to become a pro, even if you don't even know who the fuck they are, they sit on the bench, you are an elite athlete. And it's just one injury away from you becoming a star on the field. Like there's so many guys that we don't know that just never got a chance because they were behind somebody, or they finally do get a chance and they become a superstar, like an Aaron Rodgers. Like Aaron Rodgers go down in history as one of the greatest quarterbacks. Well, shit, he was on the bench for many years because he couldn't get in front of Favre. So you have situations like that in an NFL all the time. And the Patriots just have proven year over year that.
So are they the favorites this year just because they're
No,
such
they're
a...
not. No, they're not the favorites right now. The Chiefs. This is actually the first time in a few years the Patriots are going into the AFC Championship as an underdog. So the Chiefs. And the Chiefs are a great story because they're the opposite. They're super young. They have
really young quarterback.
Yeah, you have Mahomes who looks like he's 12.
Yeah.
So you have this kid who's quarterbacking and he's having a career. He's
fresh out of college.
He's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rookie, and he's
It's
about
crazy.
and he's in the AFC Championship game. He threw more passing TDs than anybody else. Like he's had an incredible year.
What college do you guys know where he came out of?
I don't remember what college he came. Oh, he came out of the same college that no, he didn't. That's where what's his face from the Niners. I was gonna say Favre did, but that's I don't know where Mahomes went.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But he's a stud.
That's crazy. Rookie year, and he's going this far.
like right away. That's impossible. But that's good coaching, though. To be able to bring somebody like that has talent in college and then elevate them up to that level of like speed and quick decision making and have that kind of that's all that's a lot of coaching.
Texas Tech University.
There you go.
Apparently, so they must have a good program there. for football.
Yeah, of course, dude.
I
Yeah,
have no
Texas, like all schools in Texas are dominant.
Dude, there's some cultures that are in the country that are
Dude,
just
they eat, sleep,
revolve.
and breathe football
Well,
in Texas, Florida, and I mean California is like pretty much a powerhouse.
Oh, some of these states have a culture around wrestling that it's like
Ohio and the Midwest will argue, you know, like that's definitely
No,
It's
Texas
so cool.
If you have you watched like Friday Night Lights and those
No.
shows before? Like this football like starts at a very Pop Warner football is
they
crazy.
take it super serious.
Oh yeah, it's crazy, and they're all feeder systems for the next level up.
It's along those lines. You guys saw the article that I posted in the forum. They did some scientists. I got to find the article. Some scientists did some imaging on high school football students, and found
I saw you post that.
and found permanent changes to their brains after one season in high school. Now, here's the thing. I this information, it's not necessarily changing anything in the sense that, it's always been this way. But what it's changing is now people are more and more informed.
yeah.
And as more of this comes out, they're gonna. I don't know, man. The feeder systems, I feel like, are gonna start drying up.
Yeah, I know. I've been kicking this idea around of getting, scanned and kind of like seeing where I'm at in terms of, what damage and battle damage I accumulated over the years, just to see like what, what I can improve and, what kind of practices I can implement to help, me retain information better and all that. But
You do seem a little 40-40.
That's a little
nobody's going to
inside
know
joke.
what that means, dude. You got to tell.
That's a little.
You got to
inside
tell.
joke.
That,
I don't know what the exact term was.
It wasn't that term.
No,
you got to find out if I'm going to use
You can't
it,
just
bro.
throw that out. Nobody knows what fucking talking
I was
about.
laughing because my dad was referring to this guy that he knew when he was a kid, and he had this nickname. I think it was something like the guy's name was like John. We'll say like John 40. I think he said 40-40 or something like that. I'm like, why do you guys call him that? And he goes, the records. He goes, when you slow it down to like the 40 speed, it goes real slow. And he goes, and that's how he used to talk. So that was his nickname. It was funny. And then we had
That's very creative.
Yes, you had
Way to call somebody stupid.
And I'm just laughing because it's the ways we give each other nicknames, like your buddy One Ball Pat.
Oh, yeah,
we
One
talked
Ball
about
Pat.
Couple episodes
Did
ago.
you see the thing that I think Jackie sent it over last week and we didn't talk about it? Was the guy who invented the gloves for
Sign language.
Sign language. That's cool.
How brilliant is that?
That's
So
really
you'll put
very,
the gloves
very cool.
on, you'll do your sign language, and then it'll spit out what the person's trying to say.
Wow.
Which, if you think about it, imagine if you connect that to some glasses, or you can connect it to an app.
Will they have that robot voice like Stephen Hawking?
Oh, will it talk? That I didn't even think of that.
Hello.
right.
I didn't even think about it talking.
That would be cool.
Wow, that's really cool.
Well, yeah, why wouldn't you be able to connect it to a speaker that spits out like a robotic voice? And
Yeah.
I mean, nowadays, even your
Now, what would you do if you put the gloves on? Flip someone off, see what it says. Fuck you,
Yeah.
Anyway, but I think that's I think that's brilliant, and it's crazy. It's taken this long for someone to do that, but it must be so. The details of sign language must be so hard to
It's
convey.
interesting. Well, hand gesturing in general, like the technology around that's really evolved. Like in terms of like also being able to control objects and remote things like drones and little mini tanks and all kinds of cool stuff.
That's the same part of the brain that controls speech is the same, or manages speech is the same part of the brain that manages sign language. So it's all speech, even though one is with the hands and one is with the mouth. It's funny when
So
scientists.
Italians have it right.
Yeah, we mix it all up together. Did you know that there's a culture? I don't know where this culture is. Maybe Doug can find it. I believe there's somewhere in the Mediterranean and maybe Greece, but they live in a very mountainous region where people will live far away from each other up in the mountains, and they developed an entire language around whistling.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this?
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know where it is, but they'll do the whistle because it travels
carries,
so far.
yeah.
It carries, and it's an ancient language. Now they have phones and stuff, but this is before phones, and they're saying that the language is a risk of going extinct. But they'll just the whistle bird language of northern Turkey. There it is. And they'll whistle real far from each other, and they'll be able to tell each other like what's going on, what time are you coming home for dinner.
Oh, that's-
and it's all through whistling.
Yeah.
How freaking rad is that?
that is cool.
Yeah, I found.
You're looking hot today.
Yeah, see that one. That's basic right there. Basic
I
language.
know that one.
I found the article on. It was published in Berkeley News, and it says playing high school football changes the teenage brain. So they did MRI brain scans and found that playing a single season of high school football can cause microscopic changes in the gray matter in young players' brains. These changes were located in the front and rear of the brain where impacts are most likely to occur, as well as deep inside the brain. What do you guys think? Do you guys think this kind of information is going to
when I hear something like that too, I also want to ask the question that what else changes that? And are there other things that kids do or other things that change? Because that's such a vague statement to say.
They're comparing it to controls for people who don't play football or people who don't have, don't play sports with that kind of impact.
Right, but I mean, we always talk about how the body is an adaptation machine. And is that just the brain's way of protecting itself and adapting? And so we see some sort of a change. Do we know that change is significantly negative, or is it just change that they see happening in the brain?
No, it's they're pretty confident it's negative. So the human brain is not designed for impact. So I actually watched this documentary on rams.
Yeah, we don't have horns.
Yeah, I was watching this documentary on rams, and the way that the ram's brain and skull and everything's designed, it was designed for high impact. The human brain was not designed for that whatsoever. And I mean, that's why we get knocked out so easily. Like you get hit the right spot in the chin, you go to sleep. Our brains just aren't designed to have impact. It's actually quite bad for us. And I'll be, straight with you guys. I bet you if they did MRI studies on soccer players, they'll find stuff also.
They have.
And they have found. From hitting the soccer ball.
Yeah, you get head injuries.
Yeah.
That's one of those things, too, and it's hard to detect because, you could have like looming issues like hard time concentrating or focusing or like headaches or like little mild symptoms from some kind of a head injury, but it could carry with you going forward for quite a while. You don't even realize it.
And the thing for me is, as I'm reading these things, I posted this in the forum and I'm getting all this feedback from people, and there's people who are saying that already. People who are very involved in the sport of football for kids, like Pop Warner and younger ages, and they're like, oh yeah, they're like it's drying up. They're not getting kids or not signing up for tackle football like they used to because of this kind of information. So if you look, 20, 30 years down the line, where these feeder systems start to dry up, because what's happening now is a lot of these schools are doing flag football.
I can kind of see it evolving.
That's what I was going to say. I wonder if
I think it's going to evolve. And to be honest, the more taboo you make something, the more there's going to be push towards it eventually, right? So if people are like deterred from it as kids, their parents are like shielding them from it, a lot more kids are actually going to want to do it, I think, at some point. And the game will look different. It might even be more brutal on one end, and then you'll have like flag football on the other end of it. So I don't know if it's it's not going away, in my opinion. There's whole like communities built around just that sport.
Yeah,
boxing hasn't gone away.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it'll stop, but I think it's like anything else we talk about where the pendulum swings one way or the other way. It's not like 30, 40 years ago, boxing and football was going around and people were going, hey, this is really healthy for you. Yeah. I'm sure there's been plenty of scares and plenty of things that have came out before.
Well, here's what happened to boxing, because football wasn't like this. Football was never, up until relatively recently, football wasn't considered a sport where, oh my gosh, you go in there and you're gonna bash your brains. But boxing for a long time has been considered that. For a long time, people have seen boxers become punch drunk and what they would call punch drunk, which is really just brain damage. And so what ended up happening with boxing is where boxing used to be a sport that the aristocrats really participated in, it slowly became a sport where only poor people participated in. So when you look at like boxing in America in the at the turn of the 19th century, you had aristocrats. As it got later and later, it was the Italians and the Irish who boxed because they were the poor class. Right. Then it became Hispanics and other minorities. And I think because as people became more wealthy, they're like, I'm not having my kids box. I'm not having. And so it became a way for poorer communities to elevate themselves.
See like the Klitschko brothers, for instance, like come in and it's like they're aristocratic. They have like PhDs, right? Or like
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, they're very smart.
But they're more of the exceptions rather than the rule.
Yeah, there's an exception to it, but it doesn't completely, eliminate that.
No, like if you look at kids, boxing, full on boxing, you don't see a lot of boxing schools where kids are actually going at each other. In wealthier neighborhoods, you typically find them in other neighborhoods. And so I wonder if football is going to go down that path as well, where as people get wealthy and wealthier, they'll be like, no, I don't want my kids to do it. But then the more poor kids, they're going to be like, this is a way for me to get out of the neighborhood and whatever.
I definitely think it's going to challenge, numbers will drop for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think they're going to figure something else out, and then they'll rise back up again, because it's such a cultural thing we have here in America. It's like part of our culture. Like, it's just like taking out somebody else's cultural sport. Like, that's like a main focus of ours.
we idolize them too much still.
Yeah.
Way too much.
I mean, it's
And I could see the pushback being so, especially because everybody's trying to bubble wrap everything.
Yes.
I could see people just totally rebel.
That's coming, by the way. Everybody's sick of it.
Yeah.
They're just like, let me do crazy shit. Like, let me be myself.
right.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. I mean, the answer, I think, was the one that I don't think anybody will do, which is take off the helmets if you want to protect their brains.
I'm all for that. I'm a leather helmet, whatever it looks like, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was watching rugby, because on YouTube TV, which I subscribe to, they have that's how I was able to watch the games now, because I just do streaming for football, and they had a rugby match on with some Irish team and an English team, and I was showing my kids, because I used to play, and it's such a different sport, and it brought back all these memories of like I forgot how you'd get in all these like dirty shots, in the scrum, and you'd see somebody tackle somebody, and then as they miss a tackle, they throw like a real punch at his face, and like you see it, and I was like, oh my God, I remember that.
Did you see the image of, I don't know if you guys are watching Zion Williamson from Duke, like he's just this phenom right now. And they just did a ESPN picture of the guy defending him, and like literally, like when the picture is frozen, real time, it just looked like he was going for the ball.
Yeah,
but the ball's like right here, and his hands by him, and he's like got claws towards his eyes. It's like that does not look like he's going for the ball, at all, dude.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah, there's a picture right there.
Oh, wow.
Second one, look at it.
Oh, right in his eye.
Right, does that look like he's going for the ball at all?
Dang.
This Quaz brought to you by Organifi. For those days you fall short on getting your organic veggies or whole food nutrition, Organifi fills the gap with laboratory-tested certified organic superfoods to help give your health and performance the added edge. Try Organifi totally risk-free for 60 days by going to Organifi.com. That's Organifi.com. And use the coupon code MINDPUMP for 20% off at checkout.
First question is from Brenda Farias51. Do you believe you can be addicted to food? Any stories about past clients who have had such an issue?
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I have a story.
Have you ever had a ho-ho?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are good.
I had a client that I trained for a really long time, and if we talked about nutrition and diet, she would tell me that she ate really well, and I knew that wasn't true, because I knew how hard we were training and how consistent we were training. And either that or she had something going on medically, and I had her do the doctor thing and everything, that she came back normal, everything's normal. But I didn't find this out till years later. So for many years, she lied to me and telling me that she was eating everything I told her to eat and sticking right to it. And, I was constantly trying to figure it out as a trainer and trying different things, right? And I actually ended up having a trainer who worked for me, and after he no longer worked for me, he started dating her. And him and I were really close. He actually lived with me for a little while. And I remember like venting to him one night, just being frustrated, like, man, I can't figure out why so-and-so is not, losing any weight. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And he like breaks down at me and goes, listen, you got to promise me you don't repeat this to her and share it. But, she's got a major eating issue. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I catch her do some things that are pretty crazy, and if I call her out on it or whatever, she completely lies and denies it. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, so we'll go somewhere, and he goes, and she'll order like a chicken salad. And he goes, and then I'll see, like, he was talking about a time they were at the airport, and she did this. And then he said he saw her go sneak over to like a Burger King line and order like a burger and fries real quick, and then like scarf it down around the corner, and then come back out. And he's like, and there's been many examples of this. And he goes, and then I know she's got a major candy addiction, where she eats tons of like Reese's Pieces and all these different candies that she loves. And she totally denies and says she doesn't. And he goes, I was cleaning the house one day and I found her stash, and she had like wedged between the side of the couch and down between the cushions, and there was like this Ziploc bag of like 40 different brands of candy. And so to this point, that's just one example of an extreme story that I had. I had a long-term client of mine that I couldn't figure it out for the longest time. I mean, of course, I thought I knew, but they're lying to you, so you don't know. Just like addiction with drugs. Somebody who is really addicted to drugs and you call them out on it, they deny it. I mean, that's the first rule.
They may go as far as denying it to themselves.
Oh, when you see the way someone denies like that, it's hard not to believe them because you can see it in their eyes that they believe it themselves.
Yeah. Especially when they start hiding it like that. I've seen examples of that too. I've had friends that you see that when you go. I've been camping and been on like family trips and things like that, and then you see a lot of the snuck candy bars and different things that like they sort of hoard themselves and then don't tell anybody about, and it's like interesting like. You call them out on it, but they don't. It's like the shame involved in it, and it's like, but like it could totally. I mean, it hijacks your senses. I mean, like candy, especially. Like that's one of those where people, it fulfills something, and it's not necessarily a nutrition that they're seeking. It's more of a comfort food.
By far, food is the most abused substance in modern societies. By far. And it's more people are have some sort. There's different layers of addiction. There's extreme cases like the one Adam was talking about, or where people will literally eat themselves until they die.
I think I'm addicted to sugar.
Yeah, well,
I think it's something that I think that's part of becoming or getting recovered from something like that is admitting that you have it. And I'll give you an example of something that I catch myself do stuff like this. So. Somebody had given Katrina like a bag of peaches, and I haven't had that forever. And we don't keep candy around the house.
What are those?
Little sugar peaches.
They're like white on one side and
I love those.
Yeah, I know, right? They're amazing.
Yeah, the little rings.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
it's the crystal meth of candy.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And I mean,
Sugar
all through my 20s, you would never go to my house and there not be candy in my house. I mean, I was a candy addict for sure. And now I keep it out of my house completely. But somebody gave it. It was over the holidays, and it was in the house. And over years of becoming aware of this, and noticing my own habits, like I know that I can become very addicted to it if I allow it in there. So I have to make sure I keep it out. Now I've gotten better. Like, okay, something can be in my house, and I don't have to go crush all of it. But I still do little things that I catch myself, and I go, oh wow, why did I do that? For example, I was heading. This was just 2 nights ago. We've had this peachy bag in there. It got opened up. It's still been in there for a couple of weeks. So it's, obviously I've come a long ways. And Katrina goes, she was upstairs and she hollers down to me, could you bring me one peachy on your way up? And so I grab one, and I grab one for her. And then I grab like 6 for me, but then I eat like 3 of them and then carry the rest of them up there because I don't want her to see me have to eat all of those, right? So because there's a part of me that feels guilty for eating that. She just wants one, and I'm like, why can't I just have one? I'm like, one's not enough to satisfy my craving.
And you know what's funny about that is it's not that she's going to judge you or hammer on you.
Yeah, but she wouldn't give a fuck. She wouldn't say nothing to me.
But what it is when someone else sees what you're doing or acknowledges what you're doing, it then makes it real.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like the fact that you ate them ate the 3 real quick, go up, she doesn't see it. It's almost like it never happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if she sees it, even though she don't give a shit, now it's almost like it's in you have to acknowledge the fact that there may be a little bit of an issue, and it's a pattern. And food, like I said, it's easily the most abused substance in modern societies. It's easy. You look outside or just look at statistics. Over half of Americans are overweight. Obesity is something like 30 or 40% among all adults, and that means that they're getting health problems as a result of it. In fact, most of the reasons why people die early of non-natural causes is due to their issues with food. Now, when I look up, I while you were talking, I looked up what the definition on the American Society of Addiction Medicine, what their definition of addiction is, and what they say is addiction is a primary chronic disease of brain reward, motivation, memory, and related circuitry.
Oh, yeah.
Dysfunction in these circuits leads to characteristic biological, psychological, social, and spiritual manifestations. This is reflected in an individual pathologically pursuing reward and or relief by substance use and other behaviors. So addiction is characterized by the inability to consistently abstain, impairment in behavioral control, craving, diminished recognition of significant problems with one's behavioral and interpersonal relationships, and a dysfunctional emotional response. Yeah, that's like most people. Most people have some types of those issues with foods. Now, you got to ask yourself, why is food such a problem for so many people? Well, we needed a very, very strong motivation to seek it out because for most of human history, food came with tremendous risks. You had to expend a lot of energy to get it. It could kill you. If you didn't kill it, you'd injure yourself to get it. But of course, you needed it. Without food, you would die. And so, like all things that were absolutely essential for human survival, we have these really, really strong reward circuitry connected to it. So like sex, right? Like really, really strong drive to have sex. Really, really strong drive to eat and to have food. And so we've just evolved to have this pleasure that we get from food, and that pleasure can be used to mask a lot of problems. It can be used to mask depression or anxiety or boredom. We've designed entire cultures around it, entire cultural traditions. Weddings have particular foods and birthdays have particular foods. And so it's extremely addictive. And I hate it when people say that food is not addictive. Like, I don't see anybody, I've heard people say this before, I don't see anybody, selling their bodies for sex for a bag of sugar. Well, no, because it's fucking available everywhere.
Right.
You want to see what would happen if food wasn't available?
Oh, yeah.
People would definitely sell themselves for food. You'd see some terrible shit that would happen.
Yeah,
It's
but you
just-
see people locking themselves in the room and being antisocial and stuffing their face with food to cope with the fact that they're not being accepted or they're not getting laid or whatever the fuck it is. you
Yeah,
know?
and so and then look at how one of the things for me that I think is characteristics of addiction is the willful blindness that we will put towards certain things. So like you look at an alcoholic, and an alcoholic will completely deny the negative impact that their problem is having on their life. Like, no, I'm still working. I still have a job, and no, I'm cool. It's all good. Even though, okay, you've gotten 2 DUIs, and you could probably be a much better human if you weren't drinking, but they'll deny it and deny it and deny it. Same thing with food. Like somebody who's, 30 pounds overweight, which is a lot of people, most people, it's a denial. It's a denial that I have a problem with food.
Right. Yeah.
I'm carrying 30 extra pounds of adipose tissue, which is, and I chose 30 because it's right around there where you start to, I don't care how fit and healthy you are, there's some negative effects that come from it. There's just a denial from it. Like, it's all right. I'm 30 pounds heavier than I should be in terms of body fat and whatever. It's this willful ignorance and denial. It's this, think about how many people eat because they're truly hungry versus how many people eat because they're bored or because it's in
there's
front
the
of them.
fine line with food. Calling it addiction is because people do need it. You need to eat every single day, and there's all this tied into it as a daily ritual and routine to keep you alive. And so it's tricky to tell somebody that what they feel is fulfilling them is something that they're actually abusing.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying all this to make people feel bad. I don't want people listening to be like, oh shit, fuck, I'm addicted to everything and food, whatever. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just, we're talking about the sub. I would say this: one of the best things you could do to help yourself with food is to just eliminate the foods that are most that have the highest addictive properties, which are the processed foods. They're designed specifically to do that.
Well, this is where too, and I know there's been this major pushback, and I think I brought up Elaine the last time when we talked about this. Is this good food, bad food? I hate that we can't call it that because then everybody goes, oh, we're demonizing food. It's like, but there's a very clear, obvious line of food that, in my opinion, is good and that is bad. And what constitutes it bad, in my opinion, is it has these highly addictive properties about it that that companies have spent millions on millions of dollars.
Most of the money that they spend goes towards
to figure out how to make you addicted. The same way video game people make video games to be addictive. The same way the iPhone and iPad and all these tools that we have that we're all becoming so addicted to. Like, yes, it can be bad. That's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. And it doesn't mean that we have to demonize it, but also to accept that that's not a good choice and it's not ideal. Like, I think you have to, and this whole trying to mask it with there's no such thing and if it fits your macros, it's like, it really, to me, it seems like you're setting yourself up for failure to allow that to happen, because everybody that I know that has done that battles with that addiction. And I see it a lot within my peers in the competitive space of this. Okay, when I'm on my kick and I'm getting ready for a show, I'm really regimented, I'm weighing, I'm measuring, I'm counting all the things in the wrapper, and I won't overdo it. But as soon as that goes away, it's no longer showtime. And I remember watching myself, even with things like protein bars, something that we would consider a quote-unquote healthy food.
Well, look at how much money gets spent on protein bars to make them addictive.
Right.
You know, that's all the most successful ones.
I was eating there's days I'd eat 4 or 5 of them in a day. No difference than a candy bar at that point. You know what I'm saying? It really isn't. And it's what I found fascinating. And a long time ago, I talked about this on the show, but I haven't talked about it in a long time because I can't even remember the last time I had a protein bar. But I remember having shows where I went all natural food, and then having shows where I let, powders and things like that and processed foods in there, and then paying attention to how my body. The biggest thing that I noticed that I was fascinated with was if I had not had a protein bar for a really long time, like right now would be a good example. If I were to go eat a protein bar right now, it tastes like shit. Even the best brands like Quest, which I think have really hacked how well it tastes, I think tastes terrible. But let me have 1, then 2, then about 3 or 4. Once I get about 3 or 4 consistently in, like maybe 3 or 4 days in a row where I've had that bar, it all of a sudden starts tasting really fucking good. And then it goes from tasting really good to like I'm craving them, where I find myself, watching TV or something. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go get one of those, cookies and cream bars right now. And I go get one of those bars and I crush 2 of them. And it's like, it's amazing to me how quick I can see myself get addicted to those things.
I see it with it. You can see it really clearly with kids. Like anybody who's listening that has kids knows what I'm talking about. Like my kids will be watching TV and I'm hungry, and I'll be like, okay, what do you want? We have chicken from last night in the fridge. I got some steak, and we have some some vegetables, and then I have some strawberries. Right? Nah, I don't want that. Or do you have any chips? Like, no, we don't have any chips. Like, and you can see, right? Like, you're obviously not hungry. Yeah. But if I put these engineered foods in front of you that are designed to make you eat a lot, they'll sit there and eat an entire bag of potato chips or an entire bag of Cheetos or whatever. So if you eliminate those or remove them from your diet, it makes it a lot easier to deal with the potential for this kind of addictive type of behavior with food. I mean, one of my favorite best benefits of fasting, one of the reasons why I still fast occasionally for 24 or 48 hours, isn't necessarily for the biological, physiological health benefits. Although I like that, right? I like the physiological health benefits, that it boosts stem cell production, that the older cells will die off, cell autophagy, all that stuff. Yeah. That's all great. But the reason why I really do it is it removes me from food for long enough to where I go through cycles of boredom, anxiety, movies and TV, morning, afternoon, and evening, which is, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, without food. And when I first do it, it's funny. Like when I'll first do a fast, the first 12, 15, 16 hours or 24 hours is the hardest, because it's like, oh, it's lunchtime. I'm supposed to eat right now.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
What do I do with myself?
Yeah. So let me just deal with this. Or, I'm anxious. Got to deal with it.
It's interesting. The whole like abstaining from something, like that is such a practice that, I find myself wanting to do, like in different directions, and just to see, how like my behavior, like you really assess your behavior at that point. That's a valuable thing, to understand yourself and your own habits and
great self-awareness
tendencies.
Yeah, great self-awareness.
Abstinence is of some sort, exists in every spiritual practice that I know of, every major spiritual practice. Now, spiritual practices are fascinating in the sense that many of these have lasted for thousands of years. And the reason why they've lasted is they contain tremendous wisdom. And a lot of the wisdom that you'll find in many of these practices, from Judaism to Christianity to Islam to Buddhism, Confucianism, to Hinduism, I mean, all the major ones, is that they all advocate for some levels of abstinence from different things, sex, food, from,
communication,
yeah,
whatever.
because it helps you remove yourself from these behaviors that can be developed. Look, you can be like, sex is another one. Sex is we need sex in order. If nobody ever had sex, the human species, would have died a long time ago. Can sex become pathological? Absolutely, it happens all the time. And the same thing is true with food. And now there's different levels of it. But I think if you look around, what has ended up happening is we've solved one of the biggest problems that humans have encountered, that we've had forever, which is not enough food, not enough clean food, not enough good nutrition. That was a big problem. We solved it, but it presented us with a new problem, which is now we're surrounded by all this food. We got problems associated with that, and we didn't learn any of the practices of abstaining, because in the past, a lot of ways you would abstain naturally, right? Because you just didn't have it. So now we're encountering all these other issues, all these other health issues, which are chronic, and obesity, which was almost non-existent. It really was. It was almost non-existent just like 100-something years ago. It's funny, if you Google circus fat man from the 18 or 1700s or 1800s, the circuses back in those days.
It's like what you see a model like in a Gap commercial now.
It's back in, not quite that much, but back in back in those days, the circuses would have these what they called freak shows, and they were terrible, right? They'd have people with deformities, and they would have they'd have a circus fat person, which was just an overweight person, and you can see pictures of these people at the turn of the century, and
just 100 years ago, they looked pretty normal.
People paid a lot of money to go look at these people because they're so strange. Today, one of them could be walking around and most people wouldn't even bat an eye, just to show you how, what's ended up happening. So when people argue that food isn't addictive, I think they're putting their head in the sand.
Next question is from Madness Fit. What do you think of the hypothesis that humans are only meant to squat the amount of weight that they can clean and press over their head onto their back? I had a physical therapist tell me that this should be more commonplace advice to avoid injuries.
I actually really like this advice.
I do like that.
Do you know where that comes from?
That's old strong. They didn't have squat racks.
No, it's even before that. Like if you think about, again, human evolution. Hunter hunts an animal.
And then puts it on his back to walk it out.
Exactly.
No,
makes sense.
I can get behind this. Yeah. I really can. I think that we have pushed the boundaries on many things for performance and for aesthetics and to look a certain way. And, when you think about how many times, as much as I love to rip 500 pounds off the ground, how many times am I ever really going to have to summon that much strength? Now, it's cool to have it in case I do need to lift something pretty heavy, but there's nothing in the mod, especially the modern man. Go back 100 years. There's nothing that would ever require you to have that much strength to do that. So really, if you're looking for overall health and being functional, I think you should be able to have to pick up, put it over your head, to set it on your back, to be able to squat it, or you shouldn't technically be squatting. I think it's a very safe piece of advice.
Here's why I don't like it. I hate the argument that people say that humans are not meant to. Show me one thing that modern people do that they were meant to do. I mean, we drive in cars. We have electric lights. I have an iPhone. I talk on the phone. I wear clothes made out of synthetic fibers. Like, it's a silly argument. The humans aren't meant to do. Here's why you lift weights. Okay, you don't lift weights because you're going to lift that kind of weight in your everyday life. Your body's only ever as strong as it thinks it needs to be. So the idea behind weights is to become way stronger by challenging it, so that your everyday life is very easy. Can you take it too far? You definitely can, of course. I think if you're pushing max loads all the time, then longevity is probably not going to be ideal. But is squatting with weight on your back going to be better for you or provide benefits that squatting with no weight on your back is going to provide? Yes. Is squatting with weight that you probably can't clean and press going to provide you with benefit over? Because think about how much you can clean and press.
Well, I could see too though why a physical therapist is saying this, because especially in his or her line of work, what do you being trainers, you guys know this, like how many people did you ever meet that weren't already trainers, athletes, just normal ass people? How many of them got under a barbell and dropped into a perfect squat?
Well, yeah, but I mean, there's a lot of work to get into that first.
So I think that's where I can get behind a statement like this. To your point, yes, you're right. We're so different than what we were hundreds of years ago. So to say to compare it to that, I think isn't fair. But the idea of you should be able to pick a weight up and put it up over your head before you decide to squat it. Now, mind you, I'm defending this person, and I completely train the opposite. I put 400 pounds on my back, and I most certainly can't press that over my head and put it on my back. So I definitely think that I agree with what you're saying, Sal. And I think that when I train that way, I'm trying to build as much muscle, because muscle requires X amount of calories, which then allows me to have way more flexibility in my lifestyle that I enjoy. And so it provide and it does provide for me to call upon a strength that I'm going to have more than enough to be able to do something.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't know, like I definitely see your point, and we've reconstructed what work is. You know, like in the gym, like it
totally.
So if I was just a laborer and I'm at a farm, I'm going to need a certain amount of skills and strength to be able to do all this like heavy lifting and throwing and carrying things over my head and then squat. So, you know, to backload squat really heavy is somewhat of a new skill that we've developed that has massive carryover into a lot of different pursuits. But at the same time, I like having different challenges. So for me to like think in terms of like being able to lift something up, clean it up, and then bring it onto my back and be able to do all that, I like that as a goal, but I don't think that that's necessarily like a standard. So it's not like this is the standard, like you can only put weight on your back if you can clean, but I do like that as sort of it's something that people can aspire towards.
It would be a great thing to work towards. Like,
yes.
Like right now, what I'm envisioning, like, what if I went on a training regimen right now where that was my goal? Like, I'm only gonna, and I'm trying to increase it, where I'm like continuing to work, because the hardest part of that is going to be the clean and the press. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm constantly working on my clean and press so then I can slowly increase my squat. Mm-hmm. Probably a pretty safe way to go about scaling my programming. And I think that's kind of neat to do that.
Yeah. I mean, the questions like are only ever meant, you know, to squat. Like, in other words, you should never go heavier than that. I think that's false. I think
it's false because of it's very simple why it's false. I mean, your legs are such a bigger, stronger muscle and can do so much more.
Yeah.
The limiting factor in that is going to be your shoulders, which just cannot.
Well,
you've eliminated that by being able to unrack from, you know, the bar up at a high position.
And for all intents and purposes, humans are, if we go like what were we meant to do? Well, first of all, we're meant to do whatever the fuck we do. That's what we're meant to do.
Right.
But if we want to look at how long humans have been doing things for, well, if we judge it based off of that, here's what humans were meant to do: run long distance, throw with accuracy, and make tools. That's it. Our humans were never meant, if we look again at what we've done for long periods of time, to force their bodies to build maximum amounts of muscle.
Right, but you look at Vikings that have to, you know, their diet consists of lots of like real big animals that they're trying to carry back to the tribe and all that. So I could see how having to put it on your back or like drag it, like all these things, like
stamina,
play a factor.
Stamina and endurance. This is what the only physical pursuit that humans, besides throwing with accuracy, which is something that we do better than any other animal, is our stamina. I mean, here we are talking about resistance training, how important it is to lift weights, but the reality is humans are really good when compared to other animals at just lasting a long fucking time. We can outrun for distance and just for time for over almost any other animal, even a horse.
Yeah.
A really, really, really fit, trained human will outrun a horse. A horse will have to stop and drink water, and a human can keep going. Now, why are we always recommending weight training? Because modern life is different. In modern life, the best insurance you can have is to have a good amount of muscle.
Yeah.
It just is because you're inactive. So it's good to have a lot of muscle because you're going to atrophy from being inactive. So you're just not active. You've got food around you all the time. And you're going to live a long, long, long time. You want to balance out your hormones. You want to have a lot of muscle. And then, of course, people like to have the aesthetics around it. So
this sounds like a statement that a physical therapist says because he or she has seen a ton of
Just
people.
putting a bunch of red tape out there.
Yeah,
Yes,
because
exactly.
they get a ton of clients that come in that are hurt constantly, and they probably hear a lot of them are squatting, and they hurt themselves doing too much. Like, so I can get where they're coming from to make a statement like that, and I actually don't think it would be a bad goal for someone to do that. Like, I don't think that's going to hurt you to do that. I at the same token, I don't think it's bad for somebody who wants to squat 3, 4, 500
Well, I think
pounds.
it's interesting, if anything. Like if I was to transition from deadlifting without wrist wraps, for instance, like so for me to be able to squat, like I can only squat if I could put the bar over my back and take it from the ground to my back. If I like put that sort of stipulation on the way I train, you could train towards that, right? That's something you could do.
Back in the day, the original gyms didn't have all these different racks. They would have bench. They'd have a bench, but the bench didn't have a rack on it. So if you wanted to bench press a weight, which nobody bench press, but
Yeah, you'd have to lay down and sit down with it. You'd
right.
press it and then you sit up with
you'd
it.
have
right?
to, yeah. If you wanted to overhead press something, you had to clean and press it. If you wanted to squat, you had to clean and press it, or clean and put it on your back. Everything was based off of that in the early days. And then, as guys wanted to lift more and more weight, then they started inventing equipment and ways for them to rack a weight so they could just take it off. And because it's much more difficult to put, like dumbbells are a good example. Like, one of the reasons why people have trouble handling very heavy dumbbells is you got to get them in position. You know what I mean? If dumbbells were on a rack, like you were with a band, you know how much more I'd be able to lift if I could just unrack dumbbells like I would a barbell and then start pressing. Imagine if you could do that, right? So, I get all that, and I get that there's not a whole lot of utility in max strength. That's just max performance. If we're talking longevity, I could see some value in this, but I really do think this is a physical therapist, like you said, Justin. Just putting red tape around everything and saying, just like when we learned our first personal training certs, they would tell us don't bench past 90 degrees.
Yeah,
right?
all those angles that you had to stay within, and that was totally just a safety precaution.
Next question is from Workham. Why is there a stigma around hypertrophy training in some athletics? In particular, MMA, I hear people and fighters shitting on muscular people.
Because it's not advantageous.
Yeah, this is a great question because I can see some truth in this, right? Like, if you're in a weight class like MMA or wrestling, for example, you don't want to necessarily be super massive and big because then you'll be in a new weight class with other big people. You want to be stronger though. So you want to be not big, you want to be stronger. So you're as strong as you can at your current body weight. But isn't there some benefit too from having hypertrophy itself? Having more muscle still gives you some benefit.
Oh yeah, too. And just from like a muscular endurance, perspective as well, for me to be able to go from like every central nervous system type, power driven type training to then go into like a phase of hypertrophy was like a shell shock, which I felt like I responded very well then transitioning back to what I was doing previous to that. So I would use it more to sort of interrupt my programming more than anything.
Well, I think there's like a sweet spot, right? And then there's obviously a spectrum because of the individual variance with humans. But when I think of someone who's like muscular but not too muscular in that world, I think of like a George St. Pierre. Like George St. Pierre, when he was fighting, had a very muscular physique, but not overly muscular. So I think there is a sweet spot.
Yeah, I remember a good example of this is when you would see these athletes that in MMA who would use a lot of gear, like a lot of steroids, to get themselves really, really big.
Like Alistair Overeem.
Yeah, they'd move into a weight class, so they're light heavyweight, but they're geared up in that, so it's a lot of pumped up muscle in that weight class. But then they fight a guy who's in the same weight class who's naturally that weight.
Oh yeah,
and they get
strikingly different,
and they get their asses kicked.
Yeah,
because that guy's just naturally that weight, whereas they're all turboed up to try and be that size.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, because if you build that mass and you haven't really worked your way, you haven't worked with that mass for a long period of time, that's an advantage on the other end of it. If you move up a weight class, somebody has lived in that body for a substantial amount of time more.
Yeah, I would like to see, where you would see a lot more emphasis being placed on gaining muscular size if MMA had no weight classes. If there were no weight classes, then you'd see guys try and get bigger for sure.
Isn't that how it started? In the old cage matches?
Very early on. Yeah. Because look, at the end of the day, if technique and skill are equal, the bigger, stronger person is going to win. They just are able to impose themselves on the other person. And so, like, for the average martial artist who wants to, maybe improve their self-defense in the real world, some size is going to help you. It just is.
And and you kind of have to weigh it out, right? Like there's a speed component. Like, the more fluid your movement is, the more snap and speed you have. Like that's a totally different type of a skill base. Whereas, you can have a little more size and mass that might be imposing, but to go against somebody who's very powerfully, quick in the speed to, if you look at sports, speed is a major factor.
Oh my, it's power and speed is so much.
Yeah.
It's that in strength to weight ratio really contributes a lot of that.
Right.
Like if you look at, like you take me, for example, I weigh at the moment, 195, right? And whatever my strength is at 195, if I could take my strength, my total strength, not lose any of it, and all of a sudden drop down to 170 pounds, like how much higher would I be able to jump? How much easier would I be able to manipulate my body? How much faster would I be? Because I'd have it. Look, it's no different than like racing a car. You have a car with 500 horsepower and you take 500 pounds off the car. It's faster because of the strength to weight ratio.
Do you think that some people it plays as a huge advantage and others it doesn't? Like there's going to be that variance too. Like I think of like some MMA fighters. What was his name who came from Pride, who was jacked on steroids and then he had to get off?
Kevin Randleman.
Well, that's why I was thinking of Alistair Overeem.
Right, and Sean Shrek. And then there's another guy that I can't think of right now that was so dominant in Pride, and then he came over to UFC.
Yeah.
He was still a badass in UFC, but he got off roids and he lost like 20-something pounds, and he wasn't as dominant. Why can't I think of his name?
Are you thinking about, you're not thinking, it's not Overeem, is it?
No, it's not Overeem. No, smaller guy.
Yeah, there was a few of them.
Had a mohawk for a little bit. I can't think of his name right now.
Yeah.
I was trying to find him online. I can't figure out who it is. But anyways, it was like a handful of these guys that were extremely dominant when they were on steroids. Crow Cop was someone like that too, right? He was. They
were all big at Pride.
Yeah,
they were all jacked.
And then they came over and they had to get off, and then they just didn't see. They just couldn't do it anymore.
No, in fighting is such a, because there's weight classes.
The Axe Murderer, what was that?
Vitor?
Vitor.
Oh, yeah. Vitor was jacked when he was 18, 19. Remember his first UFC? Did you ever watch his first UFC fight? When he comes out and just like machine gun punches someone into the cage. I remember when I think he was literally 18 or 19 years old, and it blew everybody's mind. Yeah. But he was super jacked, and everybody knows he's been on gear for a long time. No, I think because you're in a weight class, the idea is to stay in your weight class and be as strong and as athletic as possible without changing weight classes, because you're always going to be like, if I get stronger and my weight goes up, what's my strength going to mean now that I'm fighting guys that are bigger than that are the same size? Now they're all stronger too. Yeah. I want to get stronger and not gain any weight because I'm fighting the same size guys, but I'm way stronger now. Yeah. The other thing too is having a lot of muscle tissue. It takes a lot more blood, a lot more oxygen, and it can be a detriment to your stamina. And for people who are like, no, that's not true. Of course it is. This is why long distance athletes and runners
don't look all muscular.
Yeah, their muscles, their bodies pared their muscle down to make them more efficient at burning calories.
I remember just going through the summer trying to put on as much mass as possible just because of the position required. My coach wanted me 20 pounds heavier to be inside backer. I used to play outside, and you're going against guards that are like 350 pounds or so coming at you. And so having mass was actually something like you wanted to be able to stand your ground and hold position, but also like, mess up when they're coming like straight at you. Like you have to like have more mass to be able to stand up. But I was so slow and just my reaction time went down, my endurance went down. So it's like you give up quite a bit when your pursuit is, that's my goal, is to get bigger.
Yeah, because football involves tackling and there are no weight classes in football, then weight can make as long as it doesn't take away from your athleticism. If you're a bigger, heavier guy and you're running, and even if you're running at the same speed as you ran before, you hit someone, that's a lot more momentum.
Yeah, and you kind of have to everybody has to kind of figure that out, like where your body weight, where you're best at optimizing, and like I knew that was not my best me.
What's your guys' best athletic body weight? Do you guys know what that is for you?
I do, for sure.
205.
Yeah, about 215 for me.
So strong, fit, 215 and 205 for you.
Yeah, 205 was when I was real lean, snappy, and powerful.
And I guess it depends on what constitutes athletic and what sport we're talking about.
Because you're talking football. I'm
talking
assuming,
football.
Justin.
Yeah, and I'm talking basketball. So I'm thinking like a basketball player. I want to be.
So 215 is better for you than 200 or 205.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Like between 200 and 215. At 215, I've got enough mass that when I'm playing in the post, you're not going to push me around at 215. I start getting below 200 because I'm faster, jump higher, I'm quicker when I'm 190 to 200 in basketball, but I play a 4 or a 5 typically if I'm playing basketball nowadays. And so then if I'm playing, I need to have some sort of mass so I don't get pushed around. When I was in high school, that was part of my weakness. Is I sprouted up. I started as a point guard, so I had good handles. And then I shot up over 6 foot, and then all the coaches put me in the 4 and 5 slot. But then I was only like 170 pounds, so I just got punked.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't, for as athletic as I wasn't strong enough to bang underneath the hoop and hang. It wasn't until I got into strength training and lifting, started to hit over 200 pounds, then I started playing basketball. Then and I don't know what it's like to go against me, obviously, but the feedback I would get from people that playing against me would be like, fuck, you're so hard to move. Mm-hmm. And that I was the opposite when I was a kid. I get pushed around like crazy where I became this solid body when I was about 215.
It was interesting because I saw quickly, like when I was around 220 or so, like how flat-footed I would run. Like I would run with my heels touching and striking, and my whole foot was like really flat versus being up on the forefoot. Like it was a lot easier for me to run and cut and move and be explosive and powerful, like with less weight.
Yeah, for me it was like 185. That's for like jiu-jitsu, judo. I just felt it's funny the feeling you have when you feel optimal athleticism for yourself versus when you're feeling big and strong.
Yeah.
It's such a different feeling.
Totally different.
Because I've gotten my body weight as high as in the 220s, and I've even had my body weight up to 230 at one point.
There's a fun element to it for sure.
Yeah, you walk around, you're just like, brr, you feel like this big mountain moving. Uh-huh. But when you're athletic, you feel literally like you could just move, like you could do whatever you want and do anything. I think I prefer the athletic feeling now. Mm-hmm. Back then, I preferred the big. feeling.
I would prefer the athletic feeling now, but it's more realistic for me to feel like the big burly person. Because the effort to be athletic like that, it's a lot of conditioning to be optimal like that, and
watching your nutrition.
Yes, yeah. So it's a lot more work to be, especially approaching 40 years old. It's a lot easier to be the big buff guy, you know what I'm saying? That just requires me eating enough calories, lifting heavy, like, and that feels good, and I still feel, like a dominant force. But I've actually been toying around with the idea of really, especially snowboarding a lot lately, has got me back in that feeling of like, man, I haven't really trained. Fuck the aesthetics. Not who cares about what I look like. Let's just see what kind of
multiplanar movements.
Yeah, let's just see how athletic that I can get again and get.
I've been thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so I've been toying around with the idea of letting the physique thing go.
What got me thinking that way was when I did Map Strong, because of all the different movements and stuff in it. And
it's a fun program.
It's still a strength-based program, but because I was doing all these different movements, I was like, God, it's been a long time since I felt like I could. I could roll, I could move. It's been, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And you're right. As I got older, I value that more than the.
Well, Taylor and I talked about this weekend when we were riding together, and I noticed this now that I don't I don't do a lot of things because of fear. I've been hurt enough in the last 5 years. So there's this hesitancy to do stuff that I wouldn't even think twice about.
Yeah.
Like I guess him and Danny got in a foot race the other day. They were talking shit when they were shooting videos for YouTube. And Taylor's like,
Nobody pulled a hammy, huh?
well, I guess Taylor got beat, and like Taylor was really pissed because he's just like, dude, he's like, I'm normally really fast. 'Cause he's 30 now, right? So he's like, man, is this happening to me now? Where like this kid that I should be able to smoke, like, got me, you know? And I said, yeah, dude, like now I have to, if I'm gonna do the things that I could do when I'm in my early 20s. I mean, it's like months of training.
You got to train.
Yeah, it's like months of training and conditioning to get to that point. Yeah. And so I miss that feeling of
just being able to go.
Yeah, if someone said, hey, yo, let's play a game of ball today.
All right.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
let's
no,
do
not
it.
right now. You got to think about it.
Oh, if somebody asked me right
go.
now, absolutely not. It wouldn't even be questioned. I wouldn't even think about it. I'm so on the other side of it where it's like, oh, no way I would do that. Like, no, I need a couple weeks minimum, if not months, to get ready for that.
Bro,
like,
I had a moment like that this morning. I was in my bedroom and I came out of the closet and I hit my TV that was on the wall, and it's on one of those arms that adjusted, but it felt like the TV was going to fall. So I pivoted real fast to catch it.
Yes.
And I stopped and I held the TV, and I could feel that my body almost got hurt. It didn't, bro. It didn't. I was so proud. I'm like, I did that and I didn't get hurt.
Same thing this week. Like, so I was giving the chicken some food, like some leftover vegetable stuff, and I'm like throwing it in there. It's dark, and I just threw this bucket of food in there, and then a bug like landed right on my head, and I freaked out, and I like tried to swat it really quick, and that like fast twitch movement, like I seriously thought I tore my bicep off my arm. It hurt so bad. And then it was sore all weekend.
I was proud that I didn't hurt
I was
myself.
just swatting something.
Oh, God.
Son of a bitch.
Next up is Coach Crosser. How did you guys get good at communication? Is it because of years of practice, or is it a skill you've been working on constantly?
Oh, I think it's a constant.
I've never been good.
You have to.
This is a false question.
You have to constantly work at it. But one of the greatest lessons I ever learned that I think took my level of communication to a whole new level was as a young kid, I was a great salesperson out the gates. I was selling personal training left and right. I was breaking records. And then I worked under somebody who was also an exceptional salesperson. And I remember there was one moment where we were doing this presentation, and there was this family that was thinking about enrolling in the gym and getting personal training, and they just weren't reacting to me. They weren't going to buy off of me. And he came in and very gently was able to change the course of the conversation, and they ended up enrolling and getting this membership with all this personal training and this, that, and the other. And I remember thinking at the time, like, oh, they just liked him. They don't like me. Sometimes people don't like you. And so after we were done, and this guy ended up becoming he was one of my first mentors, and we're still good friends to this day. He sat me down and he goes, do you know why they bought from me and they didn't want to buy from you? And I said, no. I said, I think it's because they like you. And he goes, no, that's not why. He says, you're really, really good at presenting and talking and telling, but you're not very good at listening. And he says, use your ears and your mouth in proportion. Listen twice as much as you talk. And it really struck me. And I thought about how he communicated to these people, because they needed to work out. It was an overweight family. They were unhealthy. I thought I was doing a good job, but I just wasn't doing a good enough job of listening. I was doing a lot of talking, which is why his method or whatever came across as so gentle. He didn't even have to say nearly as much as I did. And it was quite effective. And so from that point on, I really started to really listen more. And I mean really listen, pay attention, hear what people have to say, ask questions, learn body mannerisms. And later on, as I started teaching salespeople and trainers and other people how to sell their products, this is the first thing that I would teach them. If you want to be a good communicator, you got to be a good listener. You will never become a great communicator if you don't learn how to listen. If you do that first, then the rest of it will follow. And of course, it takes time and practice.
I think it takes a really high level of emotional intelligence, social awareness, and self-awareness. A lot of when I was getting into sales, like you, Sal, I was reading a lot around this, and I think it's a constant growth thing. I don't think, in fact, we were just talking about this before we went on air, so I'll share a story. Rachel, who works for us, she's her position is evolving, and she's doing more and more to help us. She went full time the beginning of this year for us, and so part of scaling this business and evolving people's positions, like it's new what she's doing, right? And she came in the other day to talk to us about this potential trip that we would do, where we go out to Colorado and we film some stuff with Ned, and I basically shot it down really quick. And when I was probably in my early 20s, I wouldn't think nothing of it. I wasn't mean, I wasn't rude, I wasn't anything. I was just like, no, I shot it. But I've definitely developed myself and social awareness to question, like, was that the best approach? Could I said that differently? How did that affect her emotionally? Even though she didn't get mad, she didn't react differently, but I now I've developed this skill that even when I say something and there's no ripples or anything afterwards, for me to sit down and evaluate this. This also happens a lot, I think, when Sal and I get into arguments. Many times behind the scenes, people don't know or see, and it's all.
We hate each other.
No, it's just about, we're all, the four of us are in, and we're talking about a potential direction of the company, or we're talking about a staff person, whatever, and we disagree. And we go back and forth, and it's heated why it's happening, because the emotions are running, and we each feel passionately about what we had to say. But something that I greatly appreciate about him, and I know that I possess this skill set also, is as soon as we leave the room, I'm not fuming, still going like, fucking Sal, I can't believe that, and venting to myself or venting to someone else about how stupid he is or this or that. What I'm actually doing as soon as I leave is I'm completely evaluating my side from his perspective. I'm trying to really, now that we're away from each other, I'm really trying to see it from his perspective and what he saw, and find arguments to support his argument. And that right there, I think, has evolved my ability to communicate, because the more you practice that, the more you can do it real time. So then when those moments happen again, instead of reacting emotionally all the time, you start to process that in the brain and go, is this one of those moments where I'm about to say something to Rachel, and I know what type of personality she has. I know how certain things can affect her, and I can say it this way because I'm that type of a person. I'm very direct, but I also know that it could affect her a certain way that could potentially spin her out. Now, a really good communicator has that ability to process that while it's happening real time and adjust the way they present information. And so I think developing your emotional intelligence, your self-awareness, your social awareness is a really, really good asset when it comes to becoming an effective communicator, because it's really easy to be somebody who talks a lot and says a lot of shit because you're smart and you have a lot of information, but being able to understand how the person who's receiving it, how they could potentially be thinking or how they could potentially be receiving this information you're giving, is a very important tool to have, because then it will change how you present a lot of things.
So you guys sort of, are peeling back from that perspective. It's probably in reverse order of that for me, in terms of how I've been addressing this and being self-critical and looking at how to be a more effective communicator. And one thing I've always possessed, more the ability to listen and to really digest what the intent and in context, what people are presenting to me, and evaluating how much of it I subscribe to, or what I would counter with. And I live in my head when I'm sitting in a conversation. And so this has been a challenge, because I can a lot more effectively articulate and communicate my point in writing. And this is something that has always been more of the strength of mine, when I have the ability to really sort of ponder more of the points that were being made, and I can take my time with it. But so to be able to now evaluate on the fly, and then be more open to throwing out opinions before I've really thoroughly assessed whether or not that's what I believe. That's what I'm presenting is my opinion that I've thought through has been really challenging, and that's why I hold back a lot, because I don't necessarily, I wasn't comfortable with doing that, like to just throw out like, well, I have an opinion, and unless I've really like had a lot of time in that subject matter.
Yeah, first off, with really, and by the way, I like to talk about sales when I talk about communication, because
It's the same thing.
it's the same thing. And in people, there's a negative stigma around the word sales. But the reality is, if you're really a good salesperson, you're just an incredible communicator. And step number one is you have to have integrity first and foremost.
I was just going to say the importance of being honest with yourself and your feelings is such a key component.
Otherwise, you're just a manipulator, and manipulators, they get away with communicating at a certain level. And there's people who are really good at manipulating, but they're never going to be great communicators, because their integrity, unless they buy their own bullshit. And I've actually met people like that before, where they buy their own shit, and that's how they kind of get around that. But you have to have that integrity, number one. Know what your desired outcome is. What's the intent? So if my intent is to, let's say I'm talking to a family member who's, we'll talk about health and fitness since that's our realm, right? Let's say I'm talking to a family member who's unhealthy, and they're overweight, and they don't exercise, they eat poorly, and they just got, they just had a heart attack and they survived. So I'm going to go meet with this family member, and my intent is, I know for sure, because this is my field, I know that exercise and I know that changing eating habits will greatly improve their life and greatly reduce the chances that they'll have another heart attack and die. And I care about this person. So my desired outcome, my intent, is to be able to get them to understand what I understand already. And that's my integrity, by the way. I'm not getting them to understand something I don't believe in or to buy something I think is bullshit. I'm trying to get them to understand what I know to be true already. And so how I communicate that is extremely important, because if I just tell them, remember, selling is not telling. If I just tell them a bunch of shit, exercise is this, and I haven't really paid attention to how they would like to be communicated to or what's going to be effective to them, I'm not going to be, it's not going to help them.
Receive it as well.
They're not going to receive it. It's not going to help them. Yeah. So that's why listening is so important. When I say listening, I mean all of it. Adam refers to it as social intelligence and emotional intelligence. That's all listening, in the sense that you're understanding how you need to communicate to someone to be truly effective, so that you could literally take what you know and understand and transplant it to their brain. If I could do that, if I had a USB cable where I could plug it into my brain and plug it into yours, I wouldn't need to be a great communicator. I wouldn't need to convince you of shit. If I knew of something to be the most best awesome thing, I could just plug it into your brain. Boom, we're done. You'd wake up and be like, oh yeah, that's the best, most awesome thing. Yeah. But instead I have to use words. And so I have to learn how to be, I'll tell you what, if you want to get really good at communicating, besides practicing, which is number one, take some sales courses, because sales courses have actually, more than anything else, have broken this down. Have broken down how to communicate ideas to other people so that they'll start to receive them. The other thing I would say is watch other great communicators. And there's different types of communication. Like there's communication to an individual. So if I'm sitting in front of someone, it's just me and one person, there's what makes up excellent communication there. There's communication to a small group, a large group, and then to a camera. All of these require different types of skills in communication. And so I would observe all of them. I mean, I learn a lot I'll watch YouTube videos on TED Talks. And sometimes I'm watching the TED Talk because I want to learn what they're talking about. Sometimes I'm just watching how they're communicating, because some of them are so compelling that you're like, wow, they did such a good job communicating. You can watch pastors. If you go to some really popular churches, some of these pastors are like brilliant communicators. That's why they're up there doing what they're doing.
Oh yeah.
You could watch, other public speakers. You could, like I said, go to sales courses, listen to other salespeople communicating, pick up sales books, and then practice. And one of the ways you can practice is I used to love having my salespeople do this all the time. I'd have them role play. So I'd tell one sales guy, you pretend to be the customer, you give them at least 3 objections, and come up with, answers to the questions. Your job is to try to get them to want to become fit and healthy. and then I'd have them go. And at first they feel kind of silly, but the more you do it, the better you get at it.
You glazed over something that was probably the most pivotal moments in my sales career, and just management and leadership too, when my buddy, or who became my buddy, who was a mentor of mine at the time, got me to really understand desired outcome. And I'll never forget it. It was a phone call that I had made to him. We'd worked together early on in our careers, and then he moved to another facility. And when I needed someone to vent to, or he was definitely a mentor, so I'd reach out to him, I'd call him, and then he would talk me through a lot of stuff. And most of the time, I would call him before I did something, where I was frustrated. Either my boss had just did something that pissed me off and I wanted to fire off an email, or I wanted to say something, or an employee did something that made me want to fire them or do something. And I would call him first to vent to them about what just happened. And he would always call. And of course, when you're venting to someone about a situation like that, I'm going to fucking light them up. I'm going to do this. And and you're saying all the shit you're going to do. And he'd let me get it all off my chest. And he'd say, okay, take a deep breath. What's your desired outcome? What do you mean? What's my desire? What's your desired outcome? What do you want to happen from this conversation? What is the most optimal thing for you to happen from this conversation? And then I'd say, well, I want them to stop doing that, and I want them to be a great trainer, okay, so now ask yourself, if what you're about to go do, what you're about to go say, what you're about to go write, the way you're going to respond, do you believe that is the best route in order for you to get that desired outcome? And that was just like it was mind blown right there for me. And it's something that I've taught to many other leaders to understand before you go into a conversation, is to really think about the desired outcome. And really what it's teaching you to do is to separate your emotions. Like, we do so many things based off of an emotional reaction that happens to us. And those of us that can train ourselves to separate the emotions and think very logically about this, like, okay, this is what I want to happen from this. Is this the best approach to that? It's probably not, right? If I want my trainer to be better and good, and even though I'm angry right now because they fucked up or did something, me flashing on them, is that the best? Now, some people it might be. We've talked about this before. I've had employees that do that. Sometimes they need a swift kick in the ass, and letting them know that they fucked up is the best way to get them back on track. But not everybody. And you have to be able to process that at a high speed and go, is this the best approach for that desired outcome? I think that's an incredible point.
And the self-awareness part you've been saying is important, because sometimes people don't know how to put into words exactly what they're feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like they can't say, I'm frustrated because of this. What ends up coming out is anger, or what ends up coming out is emotion. And then when you really boil it down, you ever get an argument with someone, or you get an argument with your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, and at the very end of it, both of you realize, like, oh, we weren't able to really communicate what we really felt. That whole fight was over something real small.
Right, we're both saying the same thing.
Yeah, and it's true. So, but you just got to, if this is something you want to get good at, you will get better at it if you practice.
Yep.
It's just like any other skill. You'll get better at it. Some people, of course, are better at it than others naturally. But I don't know if that's a genetic thing. I think part of it is just I think it's what you're used to. I used to get in arguments all the time with my mom. My dad used to get mad at my mom because he would say, why do you let him argue so much? My dad's very authoritarian. Just tell him he can't. And my mom would actually let me sit there and make my case. And we'd have these long arguments and debates.
Well,
and go back and forth.
I would argue that. So 100%, I think that a lot of this is the beginning development of this happens as a child, and how you had to communicate in your family. And I'll never forget when I pieced that together. Same mentor was in my car with me, and this is like early 20s. I'm only like 22 right now at this time. And my mom calls. At that time, I had the OnStar speaker thing inside my truck. I just turn it on, and he hears the conversation between my mom and I. And I'm just having what I think is a normal conversation with my mom, and I hang up the phone, and he goes, that's where you got it from. And I'm like, what? He's like, that's where your skills have come from. And it was, my mom has been like one of the hardest people for me ever to communicate with, and we used to argue forever, all the time about everything. And I used to get really frustrated as a kid, and because quickly I would learn that, as the parent, I always lose in Trump. So it caused me to have to sharpen my skills on how I present my argument. And it was out of survival as a kid, because you don't think about that. You're not processing that way. But so I came into the sales field with that kind of natural skill set that had been developed to me as a child. I would argue you were the same way. But you still, where I'm at today and then is light years apart. You develop that to come to become a really effective communicator.
Yeah.
You recognize that you have that, and then you build upon it.
That's why I like watching. I like watching political debates a lot, because I watch how because politicians are not communicating to each other. When you're watching a debate, although they're referring to each other and they look like they're talking to each other, they're communicating to the people watching. And they really don't give a shit about convincing the other person. They could care less. What they're trying to do is convince everybody else that's watching. And so it's actually quite brilliant in their stupidity. When you listen to politicians, are brilliant at taking simple things and making them complex.
This is why people think I laugh when people call Trump an idiot, because there's something very brilliant about the way he communicates,
dude.
Because it gets all you fuckers talking about him and talking shit. Like,
he did this tweet. I don't remember what he said, but he did this tweet and he misspelled Obama's name, and all these people shared it, making fun. Oh, look, is he doing this on purpose? Just to whatever is he? And somebody identified him like, this brilliant fucker did that on purpose, so all you guys would share it.
Yeah,
because everybody read the tweet. You know what I mean? And I was like, this guy is really playing judo on people in many different ways. And so it's funny when you watch, again, I like watching politicians, because I'm like, I know how you said that and what,
That's a good book, Verbal Judo. So along the lines of communication and what we're talking about, that's a good read. Read that a long time ago, so that's a good one to pick up. But reading Verbal Judo, any books on emotional intelligence 2.0 is really good. John C. Maxwell talks a lot about self-awareness and things like that in his leadership book. So
my first sales book was I think Tom Hopkins, and then I read some Zig Ziglar. It's old school, by the way. Yeah, old school sales guys. But it's basic stuff. It's formulaic, but it's a good place to start if you're looking to read something on this. Look, go to mindpumpfree.com and download any one of our guides for free. They cost nothing at all, and they're very informative. Go check them out. You can also find us on Instagram, our personal pages, right? So my page is Mind Pump Sal, Justin is Mind Pump Justin, and Adam is Mind Pump Adam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic. 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.